Hey, welcome back to MissouriSportsNetwork.com, Missouri Sports Network, where everyone has a home field advantage. Certainly glad you've tuned in. And as always, the Missouri State Highway Patrol reminds us to take that 3 seconds and buckle up. It's 3 seconds that could save your life. Be safe, be smart, and be here tomorrow. We welcome you into Week 13 roundtable with the usual suspects plus one. And we'll go around the room. We'll introduce Bailey Hart from KSN Sports, the sports director at KSN. Bailey, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Very, very good. From STLHighSchoolSports.com, Mr. Dave Queedall. Dave, thanks for joining us again.
Always a pleasure, Guy. Thanks for having me.
And from PrepsKC.com, managing editor, Dion Clisso. And Dion, we appreciate your involvement today.
It's been a nice little way to end the work week as we head into games the last few weeks. It's been fun.
You bet. And our newest contestant, though not unfamiliar to the Missouri Sports Network, Corey Riggs from MediaCom. Corey, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, Guy, it's my pleasure. I feel like I'm about to be involved in the weirdest game of Hollywood Squares I've ever seen. The Hollywood Sports Squares. It'll be a lot of fun.
Hey, you bet. And we'll start
awesome.
off by just talking about some of the events from last weekend in Week 12 and anything that kind of really stood out or surprised. And we'll start with Bailey because maybe the biggest surprise was right down there in her backyard.
Yeah. I think obviously a lot of us thought that, myself included, thought Carthage was going to, win a district championship and move on and probably, make it to state. And that didn't happen. I mean, Webb City doing what Webb City does best. And, they've really embraced that underdog role. That's one of the things that we've been talking about a lot the past week is how they can be the best Webb City team you've ever seen, and they're still going to think that they're, the underdog in these games. I think that's just the mentality that they have, that, we're a small time, school and, going up against these bigger ones. And I don't know, they somehow managed to pull it. Coach Roderick was making jokes, at a signing on Wednesday to me about how they were going to need all the help they could get. And I mean, then they go out there and they kind of make it look, I wouldn't say easy, but, really kind of put up a pretty convincing win against Carthage. And so I don't know, I think that was a big thing for a lot of people. We all kind of expected, the season to move on for them. And yeah, there was a lot of upset people. We actually had a couple Missouri Southern players, one of whom was a Carthage guy. I asked him about the game on Sunday and he just kind of shook his head and was like, I don't really want to talk about it. So that was probably the biggest thing. And then obviously Seneca moving on and winning a district title too. That was really surprising because they were one of those teams that, we thought in recent years they'd sort of taken a step back and, they weren't particularly impressive at the beginning of the season. And then here down the stretch, they've just found a way to win. And, I think they're a really good story. I think a lot of people kind of didn't expect them to get to, I certainly didn't expect them to get to this point. So, now to have them playing, Mexico in a state quarterfinal game, that's pretty cool for them.
Yeah, a Mexico team who had a great showing. But going back to that Webb City Carthage game, Webb City fumbled the ball in their first two possessions. They're down 14-0 in that game. And I don't know how you rally the troops there, but then you get back, you tie it up. And then Cabance, first fumble in his career is in that game there as they're going in. And that gives Webb City the opportunity to get that 28th point to seal it. What were you at the game? And if so, what was it like on the sideline?
Unfortunately, I was not at that game. I was down in Oklahoma for one of their playoff games, but our weekend reporter was there. And, we don't usually have them stay for the full game. We usually tell them to head back at halftime, but something in us just said, we need to stay at this game the whole time. Something's going to happen, and then, yeah, like you said, Carthage being up 14-0 early, we kind of thought, all right, maybe we were wrong. And like I said, Webb City just does, what Webb City does best and comes from behind and, wins a game that, a lot of people thought they shouldn't. But just the reaction on social media, especially in our sports office, we're running around going, we were in shock, honestly. Like we kind of we were already, we had the date on our calendar, for Carthage to be in a state title game. Like we were pretty much assuming we were going to have to be there. So now we're just like, well, I guess maybe Webb City's that team. We just didn't really expect. I don't know why I thought anything different. I mean, it's Webb City. So
22nd in a row district championships. And Corey Riggs, an alum there at Webb City. Well, what are you thinking when you see that, when you see him down 14-0 to Carthage, knowing that Carthage had won 42-14 in the first meeting?
Well, it was hard. I was following along on social media. Difficult to see the turnovers because that really was the biggest part of that first meeting between the Cardinals and the Tigers. As Webb City turned the ball over 6 times. There are seasons where Webb City doesn't turn the ball over 6 times, let alone in one game. So very out of character for a John Roderick coach football team. But I forget the old line. The rumors of my demise were greatly exaggerated. I believe I'm paraphrasing it there. And that's what you're talking about when you simply have one of the greatest coaches ever in the history of the state at the helm. And then you bring in a guy like Coach Bailey and you bring in Lamar's architect of their 7 straight state championships. I mean, it's just an abundance of riches over there. And that never say die attitude that permeates not only the players, but the coaches, the fans. There's just so much tradition that surrounds that program. But with all of that being said, even I was surprised to see the score come across when it was all said and done, because I thought it was Carthage's year. I really did. I thought they had one of the most talented teams here in Southwest Missouri and that they were going to make a very deep run. But on the side of the bracket that they're on, nobody's getting a free pass from the top side of that bracket because it's going to be a tough matchup.
Well, now they get to go take on a Lebanon team that may be Will Christian's best team that he's ever had. And if he wins that game, that will be his best team.
It absolutely will be. And that is a pro offensive line that Lebanon has. And Lebanon has been year in and year out since Will took the program over, just a creator of great offensive linemen. They have a history in it. They've got a young man, Tristan Wilson, that's committed to play at Mizzou, that now is looking for a chance to try and lead the Yellow Jackets to Faroe Field and play on the field that he'll be playing on Saturdays for the next 3 to 4 years. And there's just a lot of excitement in that community as well. But Lebanon Webb City is a game and a matchup that we've seen before, and it'll be fun to see how it plays out Friday night.
Yeah, I'm getting pictures sent to me of that. There are already 1,000 people in line at Cardinal Stadium. I mean, it's Tony Rossetti, who is the superintendent at Webb City, was a roommate of mine when I was with the Braves, and he'd come out of Kent State. And Tony, great guy, but a thinker. I mean, you could ask Tony what color the sky was, and he would ponder for 10 minutes before he would answer. And he sends me a text. He said, "There's already 1,000 people out here lined up," and I've seen that experience, and there's a lot of excitement around that. They're in 22 in a row. That's something that will not likely be accomplished again. Dion, as you look around the Kansas City area, you get Joplin comes up and gets shut out. But what were some of the other games you're paying attention to? Did anything surprise you?
Well, we not really. We got a lot of ones versus ones this week. If you start in like class one, class one, you got East Buchanan, who was a 3, but you've got playing Penny, and then in class 2, you've got Richmond and Maryville. They were both top seeds. Rematch of the district championship game from last year. They both dominated their games. Lafayette County took out Butler, expected. You go to class 4, Grain Valley and Fort Osage had to come, or class 5, Grain Valley and Fort Osage had to come back in both those games, but they're both 1 seeds. They're playing each other in the quarterfinal. Class 4, Smithville undefeated 1 seed, Lincoln Prep undefeated 1 seed, took care of business. And I was pretty impressed. with Lincoln Prep beating Nevada the way they did. It's a pretty solid Nevada team. Class 6, even though Liberty North was a 2 seed, they were probably better than Park Hill South. And then of course, Lee Summit North shut out a good Joplin team. In class 3, that's where we've got the most fun. You got St. Pius, who was a 1 seed. They handled the district. You got Pleasant Hill as a 5 seed that are red hot, really good. They're a pretty good football team. The old line, the best 5-loss team in the state. They have won 3 in a row. They beat Oak Grove, Odessa, and Summit Christian on the road. They're now home for a quarterfinal game. They're trying to go back and find out at sometime in the 90s or maybe late 80s that they've played a home game this late in the season. That town is nuts. They were 0-10 2 years ago under a disastrous head coach who's no longer there. And Justin Hamilton came in and got him 3 wins last year and got him turned around. It's going to be a crazy scene. That's probably our best game of the night out here. I mean, I think Maryville and Richmond tomorrow will be a good one. Liberty North and Lisa North out in St. Louis, those will be decent games too. But in terms of Pleasant Hill is appointment watching. They've won like 4 of their games by 1 point. They've lost like 3 of their games by 1 point. I mean, it's going to be a crazy game. Pius has a great defense, but they can score too. So it's just going to be 2 fan bases that are really passionate. So it's really going to be an outstanding high school football game. I love my big class games, and I'm not very happy with Troy Buchanan for that late touchdown that made Liberty North have to drive across the state to play. But I love to see those games. But that Pleasant Hill Pius game is going to be outstanding.
Going back to that Troy Buchanan, I talked with Coach Nesbitt earlier this week. The kid that caught it was a basketballer who they had talked to come out. He ran the wrong route, and then he had to dive to catch it. And the pass, according to Nesbitt, was not intended for him. It was the guy behind him who had ran the right route, and this kid dove and caught it. And Dave, that was an exciting game. That Troy Buchanan game, that was scoring the last play of the game, to win that game. Vashon, I was at Vashon High School yesterday a little bit. Took a candy bar over to Coach Franklin. He kind of showed me his designs on what he wants to build for the next stadium at Vashon. But a lot of great games in the St. Louis area as well.
Oh, well, you were talking about surprises. Troy beating Francis Howell was, first time in 23 tries for the Trojans to knock off the Vikings. It's been a long, long time. And it, like I said, came down to the last play of the game. Just spectacular. Excited for the Troy folks. I was telling Dion yesterday when we were chatting before that, the whole county will be out at Troy on Saturday. There's going to be an enormous amount of support. The merchandise is flying off the shelf. It's a real excited community. They are absolutely thrilled to see that. They're going to have a heck of a test with Liberty North. That is for sure. So, yeah, man, we got Chaminade knocking off Fort Zumwalt North. Wasn't necessarily a surprise. Both of those teams have been battle tested this season. Chaminade have won its 3rd consecutive district. And for the first time in, I think, 9 years, Fort Zumwalt North did not advance with a district championship. Their streak isn't nearly as long as Webb City's, but I'm pretty sure it's the longest one we had in this corner of town. I went to St. Mary's in Valley last week, expecting to see a great game and saw a turbo clock. Kevin Coleman actually provided the highlight of the night. He went over the defensive player's back to snag the ball out from in front of him, landed, shook off a tackle, and completed the 59-yard touchdown in dramatic fashion. The kids call it mossing someone. If you get to see it in the game, I highly recommend it. It's pretty amazing and not a penalty. Everybody gets excited when you hurdle somebody. If you do that in a game in high school, it's a penalty. So the play just comes back. So don't moss somebody, don't hurdle anybody. So that was spectacular to watch, but not much of a game for the Warriors who for the 2nd consecutive year go out in the district tournament round. Like he's mentioned, Vashon, they beat a good Union team last week. They're going to go to North County, take on a Raiders team who came up to Hillsboro and returned the favor. They had lost, I think, 42-7 week 4 at their place to Hillsboro, came up to Hillsboro and shut out the Hawks, whose only loss this season had been to Jackson. Tonight, I'm going to go to Jackson and check out to see what Rockwood Summit can do. The Falcons knocked off Eureka last week. They allowed 13 points, their defense did, to Eureka, which was a season low, but a season high given up for that Summit defense. They've got 44.
I think we may have lost Dave.
Circle gets the square.
He's kind of locked up on us there. He may not be able to see us, and I'll talk a little bit about,
sacks. My internet connection is unstable. Or did I come back?
You're back.
Wonderful. Sorry about that. I got the Ethernet plugged in. It's a bit windy today. Sorry.
There's no need to apologize, Dave. I was really excited. I believe all of us now have screen grabbed it, and I now know exactly what your mug shot will look like if we ever need one.
So where was I before I froze? I was talking about going to Jackson.
That's kind of where you froze.
Okay. So I'm going to go see what Rockwood Summit's really good defense can do. Jackson, they haven't lost at home at the Pit, one of the cool venues to go watch a high school football game since 2016. Kyron Williams, currently at Notre Dame and a Heisman Trophy candidate, was a sophomore the last time Jackson lost at home. So the Indians have won 38 of the last 39, only loss coming to that really good Carthage team in the championship game in 2019. So it's going to be interesting. They average about 49. They give up 7. Summit hasn't seen anybody like that this season. So I'm going to go see what Summit's D can do against the ultimate machine, the Jackson Indians.
Well, Dave, I've got a question, for you as I'm looking at this Vashon, North County. North County in week 3, I think they lose to Hillsborough 42-7, and they shut them out 24-0 this week. Are they getting guys back? I talked to Coach Franklin. He said, hey, they got a quarterback that's 6'5", 6'6", 235, and they've got a defensive lineman, defensive end that's 6'7", 6'8". That's a great athlete that puts a lot of pressure on you. And I said, were they not there the first time I played Hillsborough? And he said, I don't know. And I said, he goes, they're just playing really well right now, but I think he knows. But
well, I haven't seen North County, so I can't. I mean, they're kind of out of our area. God bless them. They put their stats into our website, which I really appreciate because that helps me when I'm preparing for games like this. But North County's obviously on a roll. I mean, when I talked to Franklin earlier in the week, we did a story. He's got his left tackle didn't want to play football as a sophomore. He quit. So Franklin saw him win the building. At this point, Vashon was coming off a 1-9 season, and he just needed dudes. So Coy Preet became the object of Will's attention because he every day it was, you need to come play, you need to come play, you need to come play. Now he's starting left tackle after harassing the kid for a couple of weeks. He came out and has been a really nice addition for them. He's 6'3", 295. He moves really well, clears the way for their young freshman. I know you've talked to Coach Franklin about that. De'Air Hill Jr., who's pretty explosive, had 300 some odd yards, 4 touchdowns to beat Union on Friday in the district championship game. So, but Vashon, this is the interesting thing. I don't know if you talked to Will about this, but they haven't been out of town since 2019. They went to Sykeston week 1. In 2019, they haven't gotten on a bus and gone further than South St. Louis County. So this will be their first bona fide road trip in a long time. Curious how that affects a high school group of kids. You never know. So, but North County is really on a roll. I'm sure they're going to be very interested in getting to the semifinals for the first time in a minute. And the other game I was interested in with Park Hill Central, who's only lost this year, is to MICDS, who's been spectacular in Class 4. They got St. Mary's coming to town. So I know we thought Valley might be a really good test for St. Mary's. Park Hill Central just might be that team. The Rebels don't lose at home very often, and they took MICDS to the limit. I think they scored 110 points combined, the two of them. I mean, it was bananas. That was week 2. Yeah. So St. Mary's could be an interesting one, Park Hill Central on Friday night too.
well, here we've just got, in reality, you got Marionville a week ago. They took on, that Thayer team, and folks telling me, oh, there's no way Marionville loses this game. I thought I'll spot you 20 points. I think Thayer and I could have given them 24 points. It was a 24-0 shutout. Billy Weber has done it down there for so long, Hall of Fame guy. And now he's going to take on a Windsor team that's defending state champion last year in this same game. Well, actually, it was a quarter or a semifinal game last year. This year's a quarterfinal. Windsor's got to make that trip, that 5-hour, 6-hour trip down there. They're going to play on Saturday at 2. That was a 14-12 game a year ago that came down to a 2-point conversion that Windsor got. They got Monroe City has to drive all the way down to Hayti, and that's just I don't know how I don't know how all that works. So I'm not going to complain or anything like that. I'll just let the coaches complain. But then here we've got a West Plains team with Connor Lair, and in this area is probably Connor Lair and Luke Gall are probably the 2 best running back and linebackers. Luke Gall had 14 tackles in a state championship game his freshman year. And if he's going to play at the next level, it's probably going to be at the linebacker position and probably getting some D1 contacts there. Lair, kind of the same thing, but they got to go to Hannibal. West Plains does. And folks are talking about, I had Art Haynes does a show here yesterday, and he said, that's probably the de facto state championship game. And I don't think so. I think Smithville is probably maybe the best team in that class, isn't it?
I was going to say Smithville and MICDS are going to have something to say about that.
Yeah.
Yep. Look, they're looking on the wrong side of the bracket.
Yeah. Problem.
Aeneas Williams Jr. will have something to say about it too. Hannibal's pretty salty. This should be a great game.
It should indeed. So what's everybody's plans? We'll start back here with Bailey, who's muted her dog, I think. But Bailey, what are your plans this Friday? Are you gonna Seneca? Is it you got Webb City right there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard not to go to Webb City. That's probably where I'm going to be going. We're fortunate in that we have a team in Kansas and a team in Oklahoma that are still playing in their playoffs. So, our team in Kansas plays tonight. Our team in Oklahoma plays tonight. So we've got, people going there. We have Missouri Southern basketball at 7:30. We drew straws, and unfortunately I drew the short straw on that. So fortunately, depending on how you look at it, but I plan to swing by the Webb City game just to watch it, honestly, just to kind of see how things are going. But we'll have someone there tonight. And with Seneca and Lamar playing, tomorrow, it's kind of nice that we can really devote pretty much most of our show to Webb City and Lebanon. And I don't think the Webb City fans are going to complain. But yeah, I'm definitely planning on swinging by there tonight and watching more as a fan. I have bad luck when I actually go and shoot their games. I break cameras when I go there. So I said someone else can shoot that game for me, and I'll swing by and watch it as a fan for sure.
Well, I completely overlooked Lamar and Ava. That may be the Class 2 state championship.
Yeah, that's a good game that we were hoping that one would be in Lamar, but we knew with how things shake out, that probably, wouldn't be the case. But that's going to be an exciting game that, the 2-hour trip, we were like, oh yeah, we got to make that trip. It doesn't matter, how far away it is. So that'll be a good game too. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of, it's Lamar, so you kind of just expect them to roll right through. But yeah, that'll be a really good game. And someone might be able to say this better than me, but I believe they played Ava in a similar game a couple years ago. I feel like this is a team they've played before. So, there's a good little rivalry there between the two. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they made a believer out of me last week. I was like, I don't know, and then they went out and did what they always do. So, doesn't surprise me. So but that'll be a really exciting game on Saturday for sure.
Yeah, they met 2 years ago, and Ava actually won that game, and then lost the state championship game to Lutheran North, I believe. But Corey, you may be able to just be a fan tonight. Are you guys doing a game?
No, our coverage for MediaCom and MC22 wrapped up a week ago. So most of what my Friday night will be is relying on folks like you and Bailey and Dion and Dave, and just scouring Twitter and starting to kind of put together the breadcrumbs that'll lead to Columbia, Missouri in the state championships. Just starting to try and familiarize myself with as many teams as I can that are going to be in the running there for Thanksgiving weekend. I'm already starting to start perusing the STL sports page and find all the articles that Dave's written this year on CBC. I've had the pleasure of calling, I think, 4 now Class 6 championship games that the cadets have been involved in. So starting to look at that side of the bracket, because that'll come up first Thanksgiving weekend, and then what will be a crazy second weekend following that with 8-man through Class 5 there, and what'll be a very busy 2 days on the University of Missouri campus. But I'll be scoreboard watching most of the night.
It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, brother.
Oh, well, I say because I don't have any responsibilities to call the 8-man game.
Oh, okay.
Somebody else
days.
does that. But
it's all about you. Okay, just check.
At least in my house it is. I know not on here it is, but say until you guys start doing my calendar, it's busy.
Dion, what are your plans this evening?
I'll be here watching scores, and if Green Valley goes into overtime or triple overtime like they did last week, I may hop in the car and zoom down the road here and watch it. My nephew was running the scoreboard last week, and that was our last game we were waiting on. Green Valley threw a touchdown pass with no time on the clock to tie it and send it into overtime, and the overtime was starting to take a while, and I'm like, I might as well just go watch it. I didn't, but I definitely should have. Now I'm going to be here this week. I kind of wanted to get out and get to a game tomorrow, but that's not going to work out. So I'll be kind of doing some webcasting and trying to watch a few things. So we've got Kansas semifinal games on the other side as well. But it's good to know that Corey has already eliminated Lee Summit North. We'll pass that along to the Broncos and their fans.
I didn't say I wasn't reading your stuff. I just know that Dave needs more positive reinforcement than you do.
I'm the
True.
podcast guy though. I don't write that. I've got good game stories out there that guys write for me. But if you don't want to make your eyes work, then I'm definitely your spot for that. We're more podcast and video heavy over here these days. But no, I think it's going to be a great week, and we've got a lot of good games. That Pleasant Hill, and I go back to that game. That Pleasant Hill Pius game is going to be good. Hats off to a little shout out here to Lincoln Prep, and we've talked about Smithville and MICDS. Lincoln Prep is the first Kansas City, Missouri school to get this far since Kansas City Central in 1994 made it to a semifinal game, which I had to look that up. I was all ready to go back to the 80s or 70s, but Kansas City Central made it in 94. So that's pretty good. Like you talk about Bashan over there, it's a pretty good thing for them to be able to get this far. They're a good team. I think if they were in other parts of the bracket, they may have a shot at getting into a semi. They're a legit, really good team. Unfortunately, they draw Smithville tonight, and I think this is where it ends for them.
Yeah, I was talking with I had Coach Lowe on earlier this week, and said, "What are you gonna have to do?" He said, "We're gonna have to get a lot of breaks, and we're gonna take the ball away from them several times and be able to put it in the end zone." And he said, "We've got some speed," and he felt like that really is what propelled them past Nevada. He said they just couldn't keep up with us. And sorry, Bailey, I know you're a Nevada girl.
Nah, it's all right. You're not telling me anything I didn't already know.
And Dave, what are your plans this evening?
Like I said, I'm going to go down to Jackson, see if that Summit defense can hang with the reigning Class 5 champs. Friday night, we've only got 3 games here in town. I know Dion wishes one of them was out his way. We got Lee Summit North and CBC, as we talked about. CBC is a 2-year drought. So you haven't called the cadets for 2 years, Corey. They lost to DeSmet in the district tournament last 2 years. So their first district championship in a minute. Senior dominated. 3 running backs, all juniors, actually, all of whom have scored a dozen touchdowns, including the reigning Class 5 100-meter state champion, Jeremiah Love, who is averaging an absurd amount of yards per carry, because once he gets free, he's hard to catch. He did get caught from behind against DeSmet, though. He couldn't find the pickle juice pregame and cramped up on his way to the end zone. I wish I knew what that was like. Class 2, we have a really, really interesting game. I got Live for Life here in the city. They don't have an on-campus field. They don't have any home field. They don't rent a place to play at home. They play all 9 games on the road. They practice in a public park that's lined for soccer. They won their first district championship on Friday night. They beat New Madrid County Central. Their lead running back, Keon Phillips, rushed for 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's got 6 touchdowns all year now. So he was a bit of a wild card for them. Coach said the kid had a feeling before the game. He trusted him, and they proceeded to score 4 touchdowns and roll up 300 yards. They get a Lutheran St. Charles team that is really, really good. They got Arlen Harris Jr., who's going to Stanford. He's over 30 touchdowns. I think closing in on 2,500 yards rushing. I don't even know if he gets to play second half a lot of games. Their margins of victory have been pretty significant. They lost to Denver Lutheran week 1. They lost at St. Mary's, I think week 3 or 4, and nobody's really held them close. So I'm curious to see if this Live for Life group has enough in the tank to maybe give themselves a chance in the end. And then the other game here in town is Holt and Chaminade in Class 5. Holt is, won its first district in a long time. They beat Francis Howell this year to win that GAC South, which was super competitive, which Troy, Francis Howell, and Holt are all part of. So they got a Chaminade team we talked about earlier that's been really, really good, winning its 3rd district championship. So busy Friday night, but I'm going to hit the road and go see if Jackson's going to score some points like they always do, or Summit can put up a roadblock. Curious to see how it goes. And then tomorrow I'm going to go to watch East St. Louis. I'm going to drive 300 miles one way to watch them play in Chicago and then drive home.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like being in Monroe City, having to go play at Hayti. Any de facto state
Anybody
championship?
going to Hayti is a long drive. Come on.
Any de facto state championship games tonight? You think that there's the 2 best teams are matching up tonight? And as you look, at Monroe City, Haytype, and that Class 1, you got Windsor, defending state champion. They've won 27 in a row. They're going to Thayer. So I don't, Monroe City, Haytype. I think any of those 4 teams can win it. And you've got East Buchanan and Penny on the other side of that in Class 1. Class 2, I think that Lamar Ava game is the state championship game, with Lutheran North not doing well. But I know you've got Richmond and Maryville.
Don't ever count out the spoof hounds, guy.
Yeah, I know. Matt Webb, he's got connections to Bolivar. He married a girl that used to live next door to me, and he came down. He
It's
actually
on Class 2 or Class 3, because Lutheran North was Class 3 this year.
Right. That's what I'm saying. They jumped up, out of it, so they wouldn't be a part of that. But I don't know. I mean, Bowling Green, they've been putting up huge numbers. I don't know who they play.
They got Lafayette
They beat
County.
up Cardinal Ritter
Yeah.
week
They got
9.
Lafayette Counties, and Lafayette County's been playing really well. I didn't really bring them up. I'm kind of curious on that one. To see how they do, and they would get the winner of that game would get the Lutheran St. Charles Lift for Life game on the other side. So I think that I like Maryville. Like you say, don't ever count out Maryville. Richmond's got this kid named Keyshawn Elliott who's a beast, can do everything. I just don't know. I mean, it sounds bad, but Lamar's out there, so it's like you kind of wait and see who comes out, and then it gets to go play Lamar. That's kind of how we are out here. It depends on what you look. You find Lamar, and then look where your teams are around them. And
Well, in Class 3, you look at these quarterfinal games. You mentioned St. Mary's, who I think probably right now, or maybe the favorite. I mean, Seneca, Mexico. You look at the number of lots. I mean, Cardinal Ritter 6-6. On the
Cardinal
season
Ritter lost to Jackson twice.
twice.
They played Jackson, they played St. Mary's, and they played Jackson. They had somebody cancel on them. Jackson had somebody cancel on them. They played last year on short notice, and it was actually the closest game Jackson got last year, which isn't saying much because most of their games weren't close. But yeah, their record is hideous. But they found a way to beat Lutheran North the other day. They beat St. Charles West in the second round of the district tournament, pretty bad, shut them out. They got a forfeit win over East Prairie, lost at Bowling Green, lost at home to Jackson, lost at St. Mary's, where I went and watched that game. They couldn't get the ball across midfield, but 3 times. It was bad. It was real bad. St. Mary's is really, really good. Like Kevin Coleman Jr. is a top 5 prospect in the country at the wide receiver position. He was at Oregon over the weekend, visiting, checking it out. I mean, he is absolutely spectacular, but I think they have 24 seniors on their roster. They've all played like 3 or 4 years of varsity football. They brought everybody back. They got, their second year with head coach Ken Turner. Like, if they're not the favorite, I don't know who else would be in Class 3 at this point, because their quarterback didn't play week 1. And Kevin Coleman played quarterback. They beat Lutheran North 44-7. Like their only loss came to Neuqua Valley, who's a Class 8A Illinois quarterfinalist. I mean, that's it. That's the only team that's touched them. They are tough to beat. I would be surprised. Like I said, Park Hill Central's been really, really good. So tonight might be their best challenge yet, but I would be surprised if they don't find a way to win.
Then you go into Class 4, and Hannibal's awful good. Smithville's awful good. MICDS is awful good. Lincoln College Prep is probably in a little trouble with Smithville. And I think West Plains may have their hands full, and they decide to talk to Coach Perkins, and they could have played that game on Saturday because it's a 5.5-hour drive. And he said, no, he goes, I want the kids to sleep in their bed. We're going to get up Saturday or Friday morning, and we're going to go up, we're going to play. And he said, it's one thing is it gives you, if you happen to win that game, you got some recovery time and you got some prep time. So they're going to play it on Friday night. Plus, if you're at West Plains, you're driving 2.5 hours just to play any game. So they're already used to that. So Smithville, I've not seen them play, but from all accounts, they're just dominant.
Yeah, they don't give up points, period. I mean, like all the points have been scored on them outside of Platte County, who scored 10 were scored on the twos. So they're 19 starters back from last year's team that was in the semifinals that had Elias on the ropes till they blew a coverage with a minute to go. From Elias was on like their own 20-yard line, and they blew a one-on-one coverage while they were man. I don't know, but they blew that coverage and lost that game. and they have just come out and been dominant. They lost a couple starters for the rest of the year, but they've got so much depth there too that they've just kind of filled that in. And they're a tough physical team, and their speed is highly underrated. They went and played with the Raytown teams, got all kinds of speed and hammered them. So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Smithville and have been all season. You can ask Dave when we do the rankings. I've been pretty bullish on them all season. MICDS is the team that I kind of see as the one that they would play. And I go back and forth on it. I thought it was going to be at Smithville, and that's what their coach said. But I think if they play, it's going to be at MICDS, if I'm correct. Is that right, Dave? You think that's where that game's going to be? Or you just wait till they tell you?
I haven't looked. I mean, honestly, I got enough to worry about, especially potential where games are at. I just wait till the bracket gets set and then I figure it out. But MICDS can play at St. Dominic, so
I think that's because they're both on the road and they both host the same amount of games. So I think top side wins.
Yeah, I don't remember odd or even, up or down. I look at the bracket to see where it's at, and I just know it won't be at Hazelwood.
Yeah.
Then you got Class 5, Webb City hosting Lebanon, but Jackson maybe the class of Class 5. I mean, just
Until proven
have an
otherwise,
opportunity.
I'd say that's a fair assessment.
I mean, you still can't count out John Roderick.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like every time I say they're not going to win, though, they go ahead and they win. So maybe I should say that I think if they get past Lebanon tonight, they're going to have a pretty rough go of it in the next round with whoever they face. You know, whether it's is it Rockwood Summit and or Jackson. I think they'd probably have a pretty rough go of it. I don't even tonight. I'm kind of a little bit. I mean, if they can limit their turnovers, which, you know, was their big thing with Carthage, if they can maybe do that and clean up their game, they might have a pretty good chance. I don't know. This Webb City team this has been a weird season for them. Like, even when they're not, they're having a down year, they're still pretty good. So it's kind of hard to measure against any other. I'm just interested in seeing how it goes tonight. And yeah, if they win tonight, though, I think they're gonna have a real hard time next week.
It's been an odd season. I would totally agree with that. But the thing here, Guy, is you're going to see something in Lebanon that I don't know that a lot of other schools can replicate. And that is that massive offensive line that on multiple Friday nights this season has paved the road for over 400 yards rushing in multiple games. They are a meat grinder to go up against. And this is, while being an odd year for Webb City, another thing that stands out is historically, this is maybe a little bit smaller Webb City team. They're not as big up front as they have been in years past. And Lebanon's front line is as good as any. Class 5, Class 4, Class 6 doesn't matter. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, because it is going to be speed against size at Cardinal Stadium tonight.
Then we go to Class 6, and Corey's already put CBC in there. So
you're just trying to get me in trouble with Dion again. Come on now.
But you got Liberty North and Troy Buchanan. You look, nobody's undefeated, in this situation, and Troy Buchanan is probably fortunate to be there. So do they build on that?
Well, I would say yes. They're 10-2. The only losses this year were to Francis Howell, who had to go 99 yards to beat Troy earlier in the season in their conference game. I mean, they had to go 99 yards last 2 minutes, I should say. They won by 4, I think. They scored the touchdown to win there at the 15 seconds left. And in the grand scheme of things, had Troy won that one, maybe the game would have been at their place this past weekend. It wasn't, but Troy won anyway. Like I said, I mean, they're playing with house money. They'd lost 23 in a row to this group. They hadn't won a district title in a long time. I mean, Liberty North is going to be their best test yet. I mean, Francis Howell was good. They lost to Holt, who, like I said, in Class 5 is playing a Chaminade. Holt is probably the best opponent they've played this year. And it was close. They lost both of those games by, I think, a combined 7 points total, maybe less than that, actually. So this will be the best test that Troy's had, but I don't think anybody expected them to be here. So they get to be free. Like the thing that I love about this game is expectations, and you never know what to expect with these kids, man. Like they do weird things to high school kids because they are just kids. So who knows what's going to happen? Like maybe Charles Sutton, their transfer quarterback from Winfield, he's rushed for 1,000 yards. He's thrown for 2,000. I think he's accounted for 30, almost 40 some odd touchdowns. Maybe he has a great day. We talked about Nathan Ryan earlier in the game or in the podcast, or he caught the game-winning touchdown, but he didn't play football before this year. He was a basketball kid, like you said. I mean, so they've done some things they've never done before, and here they are. So I think they'll be a great game. I think both Class 6 semis will be great. I don't expect anybody to be losing by more than 2 touchdowns, and I certainly don't expect that.
Is there a turbo clock game out there tonight?
Smithville, Lincoln Prep.
Yeah.
Ooh, ouch.
Sorry. I think if you pulled some people from the Blue Tigers and off the record, they would probably tell you they're
Lutheran
hoping.
St. Charles, Live for Life has potential if Lutheran St. Charles can get a big lead early. Like Live for Life is 25 dudes deep, man. There's not a lot of them. And again, another group that's kind of playing with house money. I think Live for Life will keep it close. I don't think they'll get clocked, but I can certainly see that happening.
In the Blue Tigers' defense, before I throw them under the bus like that, they are a little different squad than they were 2 years ago when they had some big time D1 guys on that team. They're more of a team, so I think that leaves them less likely to kind of, when things go bad, go, oh, we're done. That was kind of last year's season. That's kind of how they were last year. They didn't handle adversity very well. This team's actually done a pretty good job of that. So I just know how Smithville has played, and they don't take their foot off, and they finish, and everything you think of a undefeated state champion team, that's what they look like. I mean, they've got that. We're gonna go get to 40 if and let you have 0. I mean, that's kind of their mentality, every single week. So that's why I wonder if that one could be that way.
Very good. Very good. Well, gentlemen and lady, any parting shots here as we wrap this up, and give a shout out to anybody, or dog want to get in on the conversation? We
I'll just say if it's Liberty North and Lee Summit North, we're going to petition to have that game moved from Faroe to
Arrowhead.
Chiefs are off that week, man. Come on down. We'll have that game there. Corey, is it an easier drive to Kansas City than it is to Columbia?
It's about the same.
I say it's Springfield. There's really no good way to get there.
Yeah, we're
to and from there.
We're 2 to 3 hours away from everything else. So yeah, it's fine either way for me. I'm happy to come and get some good barbecue with you in Kansas City.
Yes, definitely. In fact, if you're going to the Lafayette County Bowling Green game on Tuesday, a little plug, or on Saturday, a little plug here. There's a craft fair that happens annually in Higginsville, Missouri, that my sister and brother-in-law are selling their barbecue sauce at for the first time. And Steve Cook, the coach from Lafayette County, said that the mothers of the football team are not happy that they are having their football game on the annual craft fair because they have it at the gym at the high school. Not a lot of parking there to begin with, and it's going to be crazy for the football game. So he said he's in trouble with the mothers who run the craft fair. So I'll leave you with that.
Very good. Anybody else got any other family members you want to plug? Bailey, you can plug your dad. Is he doing a game? They doing a game?
No, he's got the night off. A well-deserved night off, to my knowledge. I mean, it's my dad, so he might get a wild hair and drive a couple hours to a football game. I wouldn't put it past him, but no, he gets a night off tonight. His focus turns to high school basketball, so he never really rests. And I believe my brother's also calling a game tonight in Kansas. I need to text him and ask, but he was following one of their 8-man teams throughout pretty much their season, and they just lost this past week. So he might actually have a night off too. So I guess I might be the only Harbit that's working tonight, working a sports event. Very good.
Well, again, lady and gentlemen, I certainly appreciate the time here on the Missouri Sports Network, and look forward to doing this again. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks for having me on.
It's always fun.
All right. Well, we're going to turn it off here. You're listening to the Missouri Sports Network here at MissouriSportsNetwork.com, where everyone has a home field advantage. Thanks for listening.